Today I'm going to take you through what's essentially Webforms. We're going to focus on two things that's been added into your Webforms. That's the transaction desk piece. Those two things are, first of all, file submission, and then second, authentisign. So everyone here has authentisign active on your Webforms right now. We're going to set up a little test file together so we have something to use, and then really focus on how to take filled out forms or documents you've added to the system and send them to your client through authentisign. And then, like I said, the other main focus of today is file submission. So we're going to start with authentisign. We're going to take what we had signed and we're going to submit that in to our brokerage to get reviewed. So we're going to take a look at how flexible it is to submit documents through the system, and we're going to take a look at a few ways to do it. I'm going to start here from the first screen that you see when you log in. If anyone hasn't logged into Webforms before, you just hop in through Matrix. So there is no added usernames, passwords, or anything for you to remember. You just come in through Matrix, select Webforms from there, and it brings you through to the screen you're seeing here. First thing we want to do is we want to set up a transaction. I'm going to keep this high level. If anyone here hasn't set up a transaction before within Webforms, there's a lot of training material available to you. Before we finish up, right at the very end, I'm going to go through how you can get additional training and additional support through for the system as well. So to start things out, I'm just going to hit create transaction. I always think of a transaction just like a digital version of one of those old-fashioned manila folders, right? So when we create a transaction, grabbing a brand new folder out of the file cabinet for whatever client interaction you have, whether that's a new listing, a new offer, even just new buyers I'm representing. Maybe I just want to get a folder ready for when they do decide on a property. First thing we always do when we set up a new transaction is we name it, right? You got to label your folder. You want to give it a name that's going to make sense to both yourself and the brokerage, right? Everybody needs to look at this name and understand what this transaction is. So property address, client names, stuff like that. Very good to include into your name. I have a property right here that I want to use. So I'm going to paste in my name, and then I'm going to tack on my client's name as well. One of the new things with Webforms, sorry, wait in the back.
Yeah, Andrew, just to be clear that with the name, we would muchly prefer administration to be the address as opposed to a name.
Okay.
So if it would just strictly be the name of the address of the transaction.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just in case anyone didn't hear that, the brokerage would prefer that if there is a property address, that be the name of the file. So we're going to take Joe out of there. If you have a property address, that's the name of your transaction. It's again because everyone needs to identify what that file is. The last thing people want to see is just residential sale or something as the file name because they don't know, what property that is, what that folder is doing there. Our next step, once we have a name for the transaction, is to pick a template. Templates have become mandatory, so this is one new thing that you'll see with the system. What templates are just essentially pre-built packages. So your brokerage has gone ahead and set up these pre-built packages for each type of transaction. And what it does is if you think of creating a transaction, just like grabbing a new manila folder out of your filing cabinet, what we're able to do with templates is when we grab that file out of the cabinet, it comes pre-stuffed with everything we need for that type of transaction. So I grab my folder out of the cabinet for this new offer I need to write, and all of the blank contracts that I'll need to fill in for that offer, all of the file requirements I'll need to submit if and when that offer gets accepted, are all just part of my folder now. So the template is going to save me time right off the bat as soon as we create that transaction. So next we have importing data. Importing data is optional. If you look, we even have it marked as optional. Importing data is really useful if you are able to do it. Depending on the type of transaction we're creating, we may not be able to do it. What importing data does is it allows us to import any listing from the MLS into our transaction. So in this case, I'm going to create a residential sale. So I'm representing the buyer, and that means we're going to have listing information on the MLS that we can import in for the listing that we're writing the offer on. If we're creating a listing file, we may not have a listing to import yet because we're creating the listing. We're still filling in the listing agreement. And so it is optional. You definitely don't have to do it when creating a transaction, but you can. Underneath that, we see our templates saved us time as well. With the add me as the dropdown, what we can see is that the system has looked at the type of template that we're creating and is going to add us into the transaction as the side of the transaction we're representing. So it sees I have my template where I'm representing my buyer. Is going to add me in as the cooperating salesperson or the buyer's agent already. So you can see the template right away saving you time, adding you into the file so that you don't need to add in any of your own information, any of your office information into any of the forms or into your unsigned signings down the road. So we're going to select our template. We're going to create our transaction now as well. Creating the transaction brings us into the transaction wizard. This is something that's on by default. You definitely don't need to use it. Something we're going to take a really quick look at. Again, we're going to put the focus more on what's been added into your transaction. And so I'm going to kind of run through our wizard steps to start, but again, you definitely don't need to follow it. And we're not going to take a detailed look into it, just kind of keep it high level. As soon as we create our transaction, you see the listing I've imported is imported in to our transaction. And so it brings us right into our details, allows us to start entering in address information, property information, and stuff that's already pre-filled for us. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to quickly enter in information that that we know that may not be part of the listing. But information that I'm going to have auto-populate into all of my forms. So I've entered in the information I want. I'm going to hit the next button across the top, and that next button is going to bring me through into our next step. Again, just kind of run through this step really quickly. It's very similar to the last step where it's just more dates that we can enter and have auto-populate forward. I'm going to hit next, and it's going to bring us through into contacts. Now, contacts are the people associated with the transaction and the role they play in it. So this step's much more different than what we've seen so far. I'm going to hit add up in the top right, and I'm going to start adding in the contacts that I know that have a role in this file, and I'm just going to not worry about, again, people I may not know at this point. We may not know someone like the lawyer, but I know my buyer. So we're going to hit to add a contact. We're going to add our contact in, put in our buyer's information. Again, this person is going to auto-populate into our forms, into unsigned down the road. After we add in our contacts, we're going to be brought through into our forms. Our forms are the web forms, the blank fillable contracts we need for our file. First thing you can see right away, all of our forms that we need for this type of transaction are here. Template's gone ahead, given us all of the blank contracts that we need for this file. And I'm not going to worry about filling it in. We're not going to, everyone here could probably teach me a thing or two about filling these in, so we're not going to worry about it. We're just going to hit next. It's going to bring us through into our final step here. As I hit next across the top, is going to bring us through into documents. Documents are our general storage area, something we'll work with a little later. So I'm just going to hit done where my next button used to be, and it's going to bring us out to the main page of the transaction. Main page of the transaction is transaction dashboard. Transaction dashboard is the home page to your transaction, right? So just like your account had your member dashboard, your transactions, when you open them up, bring you through to a transaction dashboard, something that's fully customizable, something that just built to give you quick and easy access to the different areas of your transaction. Over on the right side, we have all the different sections of our file as well. We're going to go over to the right side and then just select back to wherever we need to go. The next thing I want to do is I want to start a brand new signing. And so we're going to go over to the right side and we're going to start our signing. Now you can start assigning 100 different ways through the system. You're going to find a lot of different ways that work better for you than the way I'm going to do it here. But a way I always like to think of it in order to start assigning is to, first of all, make sure you're going to the right side. If you go over to the left side here, you're closing your folder, you're navigating out of your transaction. If we go over to the left side here to forms, for example, that's going to bring us out into just general forms, digital version of just loose paper on your desk. And it's the same idea with something like Authentisign as well. I want to start assigning inside my file, so I want to make sure I'm going over to signings on the right side, or I'm going to forms on the right side. So I'm going to go over to forms on the right side. I'm going to select a couple of forms that I want to get signed. We're just going to grab a couple of these forms, just using these big circles to the right of the forms. We're going to check them off and go up to our little basket up in the top right. Little shopping basket is going to show us what we've checked off using these big circles. So select our items and then we want to check out and say what we want to do with those items. So we're going to select those forms, hit the basket, and now select send to Authentisign. This will start our signing with these two forms already part of the signing. So we're going to hit start signing. It's going to bring us through into the first step of our signing, into one of 4 steps that you'll have to work through in order to send the signing out. Just like when we created our transaction, when we create our signing, we get, it's normally much quicker. Refresh it really quick, but it's the same idea as working through a transaction. Working through a signing is going to bring us through the signing wizard. The nice thing about the signing wizard, it's one less step than the transaction wizard, but the system's just going to take your hand and walk you through the important areas of a transaction to look at while you're creating that signing. So I'm just going to quickly reload. Okay, so we're back into our signing here. The first step of the 4-step wizard that we're going to work through is our details. Our details is just the basic information about our signing name, the order we want it sent out in. You can see the other steps here that we're going to work through, details, participants, documents, and design. So we're going to decide on a couple of basic details about our signing and then say who is signing, what they're signing, where they're signing. So we're going to, again, start with deciding what we want our signing name to be. You see, the system does look at what I'm getting signed and it's going to generate a name for me. I can absolutely change that name to something that makes a little bit more sense. You just want to name it something. 2 weeks from now, you're going to look at this name and go, okay, this is what's being signed here, without having to open up the signing, open up the documents, and read through them. The other option in step 1 is your order. Your participant order, one of 2 orders, sign in line or simul-sign. Sign in line, signing participants, sign in order. I'm going to send this signing. It's going to go person by person through everybody who needs to sign. Husband and wife signing this offer, it's going to go to the husband or it's going to go to the wife, whoever I set up first, and then only once that first person signs does it move through into the second part. one nice thing with the order is that whatever you used last time, it's pre-selected. From my transaction pop-up, anybody I've typed into the forms or anybody I've added into the contact list show up right away, and I can just quickly check them off. Yeah, go ahead. I didn't enter these people in. This came from our listing. What I would do is select them and add them in. We're going to open it up. And then we're going to use this person just as the first signer. So I'm going to go down into custom signature, and we're going to make this person Zach. And then we're going to manually add in the second and third, the third people as well. Oh, and we'll enter in. We're going to go over to add, and then we'll add in the second and third people. We want each individual person listed as their own individual participant. Anybody who needs to sign needs to be their own participant. And that's common also with people who share email addresses. So I didn't know these people were nearly as common as apparently they are. But people who are sharing email addresses, most commonly partners, husband, wife, both have one email address. They're still separate people who are signing the document separately. So you're going to set them up as separate participants. There's a added feature here with our participants called signing pins. So, Zach and his wife share an email address. I'm going to send the invites to that email. They're going to receive two emails, one addressed to Zach, one addressed to his wife. I want to be sure that Zach doesn't sign both of them, right? He can't sign for his wife. We need to make sure each individual person signs. And that's where signing pins come in. Signing pins are just an added password. So we're going to do something like this. I'm going to change this to 1, 2, 3, 4, or else I'll forget it by the time we sign. But the signing pin is not going to be shown on the invite that gets sent to the signer. They'll have no way of knowing this, except for I'm going to call or send Zach's wife a quick text letting them know, letting her know specifically, this is the password. So we're going to make sure Zach doesn't know it, so when he goes to sign, he can't get into the signing. We're going to trim this out. In our example, I'm representing the buyers, so we'll add Joe. We'll add Joe's wife. They share an email address. Role is an important field. It's not mandatory. Most of the time, the system's going to pre-fill this as well. The system needs to understand exactly who this person is, so it knows where this person needs to go in all of the forms, where this person needs to sign everywhere. So because I didn't enter Lisa into any of my forms before, I didn't need to manually apply it. But when we get to this point, we're going to have our buyer in our purchase agreement that they need to sign. Right? We're going to have filled out our buyer somewhere on our forms. So I needed to fill it out here. You probably won't, but role is important. Last person I'm going to add in is myself as well. If you need to sign the documents, you need to be a participant as well. Everybody, including yourself, who needs to sign, goes as a participant into the signing. So I'm just going to quickly hit add myself. It's going to add me in here. And then we're going to add. Up along the top, we have type. Type dictates what this person does when they receive the documents. Remote signer is selected by default whenever you add somebody in, because remote signer is going to be what you use 9 times out of 10. It's a general rule of thumb. If I want the person to sign what I'm sending them, I want them set as a remote signer. Remote signer is the person who receives the documents, they open them up, and they sign somewhere. So if you want the person to sign what you're sending them, they're going to be a remote signer. All the other types, I'll have a more specific use case. All of the other types deal with just specific situations. Something like in-person signer. In-person signer used to be way more common before everyone had a smartphone in their pocket. In-person signer allows you to receive the invite for your signers, open the email up, and then have them sign through Authentisign. So they've come into my office, and on the way over, they drop their phone in a puddle, or they're over their data limit, or they just don't have a smartphone. I can send the email to myself, hand my iPad, or turn my laptop over to my signers, and then they're able to sign. So they don't need to sign into their email on my device. It's just it's a cleaner way to handle. We have reviewer. Reviewer is somebody who receives an email to the documents, just like a remote signer would, but doesn't sign anywhere. I want my buyer's lawyer to approve the documents before my buyers receive the documents. We're going to add the lawyer in, set them as a reviewer. When we send the documents over, they don't sign anywhere. They're just going to look it over and approve it or reject it. Final type CC only. This is somebody who's included in the final signed documents, not somebody who will receive anything until then. Okay, so this person doesn't get anything until the signing's 100% complete, at which point they're sent the final signed documents, just like you would, just like your signers would. I need to sign the document, so I'm going to be a remote signer. We're going to add in who I am. I'm just going to set myself, save. One final issue with how I have this set up. There's a great feature called signing groups, where I'm sending a simul-sign. Everybody gets it all at the same time right now. With signing groups, what I can do is stagger it, so only specific people get it at the same time. We don't want to play favorites with our two buyers, but I want to receive the documents and sign them first. That way, when my buyers go to sign, they already see my signature down. So what we're going to do is just open up our signers, and we have signing groups just over on the right side here, down about halfway. We're going to put Lisa in group 2. And you see now Lisa goes to the back of the list. Put Joe in group 2 as well. Now when we send this, it goes group by group. It goes to me. Once I sign, now it goes to both of my buyers at the same time. Our next step is documents. Documents is what we want to have signed. So we've said who is signing. Our next step is to say what they're signing. Yeah, there's a question. So the question was what's stopping them from just printing out the document that you've already signed and changing it. And really nothing. You will have a signed copy from Authentisign of the document that you signed. So it will show that they printed it and what they're showing is different than what you actually signed. Authentisign will give you revisions, so as each person signs, you have that secure document. That's probably your best bet to prevent that. You can sign last if that makes more sense. You can put yourself in group 2 and leave both your buyers in group 1, whichever makes the most sense. So in the case of a signback was what was brought up, and changing the document is something you would do before you send the signing out. So when we get to our last step here before we send it out, we'll see how to specifically mark up the document if we need to strike something out before we send it. I've loaded up an offer I've received, brought it into Authentisign. I'm going to strike out their price and put a a much higher price, we do that in step 4. So we load up the initial offer in assigning, go into step 4, we can add the strikeout, add the new price, add the initial blocks, and we'll do that together in a couple of steps. For right now, we just want to put in what we want to have included in this signing. The forms I started with are already here. We definitely do not need to have only web forms in this signing. Anything can be signed through AuthentiSign. Documents come from DocuSign. You can load them up here. You can send AuthentiSign signing over to somebody. They use DocuSign. They can bring AuthentiSign into DocuSign. Very flexible documents. I have my 2 forms here. If there is anything else that maybe I have saved on my computer or wherever it is, we just hit add, select add, and you see there's a huge list of different ways to get documents into our signing. The other really important piece of step 3 is assign to checklist item. Remember that the other piece of this that we're going to focus on today is submitting our documents. What assign to checklist item does is allow us to pre-submit our documents. As soon as this signing is done, these documents are ready to be submitted to the brokerage to review. What we can do is assign them, and then the second that the signing is done, AuthentiSign will take those documents and submit them for me. So I don't need to grab the signed documents and send them in myself. If you're getting an offer signed by your buyers, you probably don't want to submit those because the seller needs to sign off on them as well. If I was the listing agent in this case, getting an offer signed by the sellers, we have an accepted offer when that signing's done, and I can pre-submit that offer into the admins to review it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to hit assign to checklist item.
Andrew, I'm just going to make a comment to that. So that's actually quite important because we have had, you guys are playing around with it, and admin is getting documents that are not signed. So they're spending a lot of time going through these documents and realizing, oh, this is not completed yet. So it's like to Andrew's point, is doing it when it's completed as a checklist is very helpful, but don't do it until the document's finalized.
Very important. I would not want to do it at this point, right? We're just getting the buyers to sign off on the offer. It needs to go over to the other side before it's accepted and ready to be submitted. Again, if I am the other side, this is a good time saver where I don't even need to log in and the documents are submitted for me. So definitely not something you can use in every situation, but if you do have the option, here I'm just going to grab this amendment and send that through. We'll save that. Okay, I'm going to click into step 4 here. Step 4 is where. So we've said who is signing, what they're signing. Last step is just say where everyone needs to sign. It's going to load up an overview of the document. As long as the system knows who we're sending the signing to, anytime you bring a web form into this step, the system's set up to pre-place all of the signing blocks for you. The system sees I'm sending this purchase agreement over to a buyer to sign. It's going to pre-place all of my blocks for me. It knows where the signer needs to initial and sign on all of the web forms. So I'm going to scroll through here. It's great everything is placed for us. You still want to review it. Don't put your blind trust in our layouts. Look where everything is placed before you send it out. We scroll down here, stuff like our acknowledgement, we probably want to trim that out. So everything in this step is drag and drop. And this is a step, it's pretty common. If you've used any form of e-signature, they all kind of work like this, where you're just clicking and dragging to move. We can grab our corners here and resize. We can use this little gray bar. Once we've selected a block, hit the trash can in the gray bar to delete it, hit the gear to get more options, right click, gives you the same options. So we'll delete that. We get the question fairly often, does AuthentiSign show the date and time of the signatures? And the answer is yes. AuthentiSign will display the exact date and time your signers sign. So we have my block here. Around the border, we'll have the exact date and time that the signature happens. We do have the option to add date and time stamps, but a common misconception, you don't need to do it every single time. I only need to add a date or a timestamp if I need the stamp on a specific line of the form. So in this situation, if Joe is to sign there, I need the date stamped on the specific date line in this form. I would want to add a date stamp, like we have one pre-placed now. If I just need to make sure it's recorded on the form in general, I don't need to do anything. AuthentiSign will automatically display that information. So we'll trim out this to add a place for us to sign our initial. We go up into the top right. We have a blue bar here. Allows us first to select our signer. So you see I have myself and my buyers here. Whatever block I add is going to be for the person shown in that blue box. So I'll grab Joe. We want to add a place for Joe to sign. Joe's selected here, and now we move into our drag and drop tools. Drag and drop is going to allow you to place anywhere you want Joe to sign, initial, check boxes for him to select, a text box for him to fill in. Anything in drag and drop is an action for your signer to perform. If you've never sent an AuthentiSign signing, I'd recommend that you send yourself a couple of signings. Just add these blocks onto the document, getting to see how your signer interacts with them. Will normally make them click pretty quickly. You can understand very quickly what the blocks are for, how to use them. It's called the drag and drop menu for a reason, just because like everything else in this step, it's just click and drag. Drag and drop it to where you want it to go. Reposition it. There we go. If you click it, what it does is it just adds it up into the top right. There is one block in here that isn't drag and drop. See, if I drag and drop this over, it doesn't do anything. This is a quick add for initial blocks. I've loaded in a 30-page builder's contract into AuthentiSign, and I need my signers to sign in the bottom right of all 30 pages. I do not want to drag and drop, switch signer, drag and drop, scroll down, drag and drop, switch signer through 30 pages. I'll find a new job. What we're going to do is select the placement and alignment, who we want to add the blocks first for, and then select my, we're going to pretend this is a builder's contract, select the page ranges. So maybe 16 and 17 are just pictures of the property or a map of the area or something. We don't need them to initial those. We'll do pages 1 to 14 and then 18 to 29, something like that. So you can specify the range of what pages you want. And then the last thing is just to pick the size. And we hit continue. And it will add in those initial blocks just down in the bottom right. You know, if we need to reposition them a little bit, it's way quicker to just quickly bump them off of some text than it is to drag and drop and switch signers, and drag and drop and scroll down, drag and drop and switch signers. The other piece to this is layouts. AuthentiSign knows where on all of the web forms everyone signs. If I'm loading in something that isn't a web form, like a builder's contract, my own personal form I have just saved on my computer, AuthentiSign doesn't know what that is. It's not going to pre-place the blocks for me. What I can do is save my own layout. Layouts is really just AuthentiSign's word for template. So what I'm going to do is go over to layout. We're going to say, once you've dragged and dropped everything once, save the placement of all of those drag and drop tools. The next time we load in a builder's contract and I'm going to send it out for signature, we can just apply what we've done. So we don't need to do it again. So then here's my layouts. Last tool set in here that we're spending some time on is our markup tools. These are the tools that let you add strikeouts, highlights, annotate the document before you send it. So what we're going to do is click on a block that we want. In this case, I want to add a strikeout, so I'll grab my line. We'll go up to our price here. Select what you want to do and then drag and drop it out. So there's my line. And we can, again, just like our drag and drop tools, right click or hit the little gear. We have the thickness, we have the color. Then I will add in and again we have our additional options, so I can add in I can change the font. We'll make it bold. It's a bit too large. There we go. And we'll drag and drop that over. Grab our initial blocks. There we go. Bump that down. Reposition it there. There we go. Once you're happy with the layout of the document, we have all of our drag and drop tools. We've done any markups we want. We just hit next across the top, and we're ready to send this out. So the question was, how do we set it up to display the signing time? If you just need it shown on the document, not in a specific blank, Authentisign will do that already. So I'm going to sign this, and we'll see. Authentisign will show the exact date and time for every signature block and every initial block. If you need it specifically on a line of your form, you want to right-click on the block or hit that little gear, the same way that I was adjusting my font size or the color of the line with the markup tools. You just hit the tiny little gear. So here, let me back out into step 4. So say for this initial block, I need the time stamped on a specific line, not just around the block. We're going to add a timestamp. So just right click or hit the little gear. And now I have a timestamp that I can drag to a specific line. So I'm going to send this out. Authentisign sends this out right away. We're going to hop through the signing and switch our focus now into submitting our signed documents. So send this out, hop through our signing. So the question was, after we send the offer out, is there any way to amend it? And you have 2 options to change the document that you sent out. Once we open up our signing here, we can do what we call reset the signing. Reset will take the signing back into the 4 steps, allow you to make whatever change you need to the document, and then send it out. So it will bring us back into the 4 steps with everything remembered, allow us to make that change and send it out nice and quick. They sign the documents back, and I need to make an amendment. We just set up a new signing, bring the document into step 4, make whatever change with the markup tool, and send out a brand new signing for them to initial that change. Reset's just across the top there. And that will, again, bring it back into step 4. One other question we get a lot from people who've used DocuSign, the markup tools will show for all of your signers. So when I mark something up and send it out, everybody in the signing, when they look at the documents, will see that markup tool. So I'm going to open up my inbox here. I'm the only person in step 1, or group 1, so myself to sign the documents. I'm the only one who received this invite. Open the pen, and then we're able to sign through. Authentisign keeps barrier for entry as low as possible for everyone who signs. No device limitations, no passwords, no installs. As long as they can access their email, they can sign the documents. They just click the pen in the invite, and it opens on whatever browser they have on the device. So iPhones, iPads, Android phones, Windows tablets, laptops, whether it's a Mac or a PC, of course, full desktops. Anything that you can access your email on, you can sign through Authentisign on. They can draw their signature out if they want, pick from one of our fonts. Once you design your signature, Authentisign will remember it for future signings. So you only need to design your signature once. When you go back in to sign, your signature will always just be there for you. I'm just going to hit accept down here. And that's honestly all that really matters when they're signing. Hitting accept down there is going to accept our consumer consent disclosure, terms of service, all the good legal jargon no one wants to read. And then it also will accept these images as my signature for the purpose of this signing. So I'm going to hit accept, and it's going to bring us into the document. Once I've read through the document and I'm ready to actually start signing, I can click on a block to start signing, or I can hit start up in the very top right there, and it's going to snap me right to the first block. Click, tap if you have a touch screen, space bar on your keyboard. Once we've signed everything, it will allow us to hit complete signing. Thank us for using the system. Now that everyone in group 1 has signed, in a second here we're going to get our invites for the second group. While we're waiting, if we open up our signing, once you've sent a signing, you can track progress. You can see who's opened the documents, who's finished signing the documents. At any point, you just go back to the signing, and it will show checkered flags on the 2 columns down the right side. So as soon as this pops up, we'll see checkered flag for myself in 2 columns because I've accessed the documents, I've signed the documents. We're still waiting on Joe and Lisa. Down at the very bottom, we have history. If we access history, it gives us a log, the date and time of every action that happened to this signing. I can see exactly when somebody opened the document, when they signed, when invites were sent to my signers. We look at the very bottom here, signature requests were sent, the exact time that I accepted these documents. Back over in our box here, here's my invitation for Joe. Joe clicks the pen. We're just going to do this extremely quickly. Start. And again, spacebar on the keyboard, click with your mouse. If you have a touch screen, you can tap with your finger. And then complete. Okay, and then here is Lisa's. Remember, with Lisa, we added a signing pin. So when we click Lisa's invite, it brings up, asks us for the pin. If Lisa forgot the pin, there's a link there that sends you an email. You can follow up. So we'll put in our pin, hit OK, and then signing as usual. We're going to hit accept and just start signing. We're done. Now that our signing is complete, everybody has those checkered flags. When a signing is complete, everybody receives an email with the final signed documents. You receive an email, so you don't need to log back into your account to get them. Your signers will receive an email. Anyone who's reviewed, anybody you've added as a CC, everybody gets the signed documents. Back in your account, the system will also transfer the documents over to the document section of your transaction as well. Because we use that assign feature, if we load up our checklist, we'll see we already have our amendment submitted. There it is. So we already got our amendment submitted. And the checklist is where you go to submit the rest of the documents. Once you have a deal ready to submit for review, Your checklist is where you place the documents in that deal. Once we have our documents done and finished, finalized, then we load it into checklist. And this notifies the brokerage that we're ready for them to review the documents and what exact documents to review, right? Because we don't want them to go through and have to look at 4 different documents to figure out which one was the final finished contract. Over in documents, here's our signed documents that I mentioned. So we have the amendment that's submitted, and then we have the purchase contract and the signing certificate as well. If anybody hasn't seen the signing certificate, every one of your signers gets, or every one of your signings gets this. Other brokerages may ask for it. A lot of financial institutions will ask for this as well. The first thing a bank does when they receive an e-signed document is they print it and scan it back into their own system. And in that very efficient process, they lose a lot of information that's built into the digital copy of that document.
Are you going to describe the process? I mean, I know you can email a document then assigned to another company, right? Like
Yep.
To the, let's say the listing agent.
Definitely.
Now, I've sent the offer over by a then assigned to the listing agent.
Uh-huh.
And now, what happens after that? Does he send it back through us then assigned? Or do they, because I might not have all of the information I need, or does he email it and we load it back in somehow?
Yeah, so I've got my signed offer from my buyers. My next step would be to send it over to them, and I can do that by adding him as a CC to the signing, or I can just go to the documents, select my documents, and then email it from the system. So just like we did when we started our signing, select the documents we want to send him, hit the basket, and say I want to email these. When he receives it, he's going to load it into whatever he's using, whether it's Authentisign, DocuSign, maybe he's just going to print them out and go get pen to paper signatures. Send the documents to him, he does his process, and then sends you back that accepted offer. Once we receive that accepted offer back, now we're ready to submit that into our checklist. So that's when we have stuff like add, where we can, I receive an email with the accepted offer, and then I'm able to now load it back into the system. So I receive the offer, I load it into the transaction. If we have something in documents, you can hit the submit button. This submit button will ask you, what slot in the checklist do you want to put it in? So I hit the submit button and now it brings up my checklist, and I can very easily just transfer that over. We don't need to. That's now submitted for review. So we load it into documents, hit the hand hitting the bell. As long as you see that stopwatch, you know brokerage has received my documents. My part's done.
Can you go back over that again, please?
Definitely. Yeah, so in my documents list, in my folder, anything in here in my documents list that I want to submit, the easiest way is just hit the hand hitting the bell. It now says, where do I want to put this in my requirements? Which item am I submitting? I just say, this is my maybe second amendment, and we hit submit. That now submits that document for me. As soon as you see the stopwatch, your job is done, submitted. Brokerage reviews my document and there's an issue with it. I'm going to receive an email letting me know, so I don't need to log in and constantly check. We just resubmit the document once we've corrected it. Yeah, so the question, do we go into checklist or documents? Checklist is where you want to submit. This is what they want to see submitted. You load the document into checklist. If you've got it in documents, you can quickly move it into checklist with that hand hitting the bell. You just click attach. It'll say, how do you want to attach it? Essentially, where is the document right now? Is it on my computer? I can upload it. Do I have it in cloud storage? Is it in documents? So in checklist, we have these attach buttons. We just select attach, and it'll allow us to upload our documents for review. So if you have them all saved on a computer on your, in your documents folder, you just hit attach. We can drag and drop it, hit the light blue bar.
So you can't send it directly out of the system then?
You can. So you can.
Just to clarify, I think
Yeah.
I'll help with that thing.
Thank you.
So if you get an email from another agent that your offer's completed, you now have to save that PDF. You have to put that into your computer. Once you put it into your computer, now you're in transaction desk and you can go to the add button right here. And then it's going to pull open your documents on your computer, and then you can add that transaction into transaction desk. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you're saving the PDF, and then that's how you're going to add it into transaction desk.
Yeah, but you're also,
Right.
on occasion, you're gonna be dealing with a final document yourself, right, which just comes back and it's completely done.
Oh, in Authentisign?
Yeah.
Well, then it would be in your documents, right?
It would be, yeah. As soon as you see submitted, it's sent to the office. Documents is your storage area, checklist is for the office. Yep. Everything that got signed back through Authentisign will be listed out here.
And what does it look like again, the icon?
These little green icons will show that it came from Authentisign, and then we have the hand hitting the bell here. As we get documents approved, the checklist will show how far along all of the mandatory items we are. So up along the top here, we have our complete bar. Once they've looked over my purchase agreement and given it the all clear, we'll see my completion bar move up. So you can always see how many documents are still outstanding on each individual file. It does. Everything that's grayed out, like my confirmation of cooperation here, it's still missing. If you see an attach button on the right side, it's still missing. So you have a couple of different ways to tell. You can hit attach and you can say where it is, like if you just have it saved on your computer. Yeah, so just to the right, just like every item in transaction desk, you hit this little menu. We call it a traffic light, just the 3 small circles. Select that. It will give you your options. So we can, if maybe I didn't mean to submit it, we can take it back and resubmit it later. Here's the notes. So we hit notes, and then we have the option to add a note in. We hit save. See, there's a little visual indicator now that there's a note. They know to look there and know what to do with what you've sent in. So that's just, the little traffic light, the 3 small circles to the right, and then the notes option. The question was, is there an app? And not in Canada right now. We do have an app and we're working to make it available, but not at this point. You can still use the product on mobile. Inside the device, once you get into the system, it's heavily optimized for mobile. I used to have a little iPhone 5C, which, if anyone remembered, is the tiny plastic ones. They discontinued pretty quickly. And I used to be able to do full webinars on Authentisign and Transaction Desk right from the phone. So like going in through Realtor Link or Matrix on phones, not great. But once you're into the system is very mobile friendly. But it is just through your browser right now. So I'm going to go over into documents, and I'll just use our sales info sheet here. You load up an offer, and you have all of your documents as one big PDF. If you look at the checklist, they're individual, right? Because the system needs to see that you're hitting all requirements. So we want to load in the separate contracts into the individual slots. Our document slicer is really good for that. So I'm going to hit our menu, our traffic light, same button you would use to put in notes. And then we're going to select slice/markup. And then we're going to slice. Oh. So this gives us a page-by-page overview of the document. So I just see page by page the whole PDF. I can then select the pages out of the PDF. So I select my first document, just give it these blue outlines to show it's selected. And then we go over to the top right. We're going to select Save, Replace Document, and then this drop-down is all of our checklists. Everything with document pending is a checklist item. So now I select the pages I've picked. What checklist item do I want to put them in? So, FinTrack. We then uncheck them, select the next ones, hit Save, Replace Document, and just keep selecting down the list. So you're going to take pages out of that PDF and slice them into the individual checklist items. Yeah, so I guess just for the recording as well, if you send the document through Authentisign, it comes back into your documents sliced out already. So if I send my agreement, my confirmation of cooperation, and anything else, just like I did here, right? I had my purchase agreement of purchase, and I had my amendment, and Authentisign sent those back to my document list as two separate files. So you don't need to slice those out. They're already separate files ready to load in. There's one more section that I did want to show everyone. Is because we have hit you with a lot this morning. And that's our support, just over on the left side. Our support's 24/7, 365. If you're trying to get a signing out over the weekend or getting a document submitted late at night, there's always a live person. You pick up the phone or open up a chat window, and our support team will be able to help you out with whatever issues you're running into. We also have a ton of continued training options for you here as well. There's a rabbit hole you can go down with this system. There's a lot of features we haven't even touched on this morning. And we have great online webinars available for you. These are all hosted by a live trainer. They're all free to register for. They'll go through basics of the system all the way up to some of our most advanced features. We have a really good webinar I recommend to people who are getting used to Authentisign about enabling counteroffer features. You can take Authentisign and set up some really complex signings. I'm going to send my offer to my buyers. Once they sign, I'm going to send over to the listing agent to review. The listing agent's actually able to mark up the document with their counter, have it go back to me to review. If I approve their counter, it then goes to my buyers to sign off on the changes, then goes back to the listing agent. They're able to input their sellers' emails and have Authentisign sent to their sellers, just all in one signing. Our webinar will show you how that counteroffer feature works. For obvious reasons, we didn't touch on it right now, but there's a lot of really great tools available for you. If you're not a fan of the live webinars, you just can't make it work with your schedule, or you find they go too quickly. I personally like the videos much better. You can pause them, you can rewind them, you can skip ahead through the stuff you already know. We have just a little arrow over here that a lot of people miss. We have quick short form videos, little 1 to 3 minute quick how-tos, very quick, just to the point. Longest video here is like 3 minutes and 40 seconds, just about how to do something specific. And then final support tool is guides, PDFs. So if you're not a video person, we have PDFs with screenshots, point form how-tos. That can help you out as well. So a lot there to help you out. So the question was, if we send a document out to some signers, they sign it back, and I want to go back to the unsigned original copy. how do I access that? In the signing itself, if we go back into the signing I sent, for example, Authentisign makes the revisions available to you. I can see the original document sent and then the document individually signed by everybody. So we'll go into the signing we just did. And once it pops up here, we'll see in the documents section, we'll have the original and then listed out revisions all the way to the final document. So we have document versions right here. Here's my original, the one I've signed, the one signed by me and the first buyer, the one signed by everybody, and then the final document that got outputted. So we have quick access right on the home page. If you want to take the original, use copy. Go into the signing, hit copy up at the top. That's going to create a brand new signing with everything remembered. So all your signers in there, all the original documents in there, everything dragged and dropped. And now I can just make whatever changes I need and quickly send it back out. So it's just copy up at the top. I send out my document, it gets signed, I send it out again with some changes. Both of the signed documents go back to my document list as separate items. This is another use of the assign option. If we bring up assign to checklist, instead of assigning it to a checklist, I can actually just assign it to a document. So it may be tough to see for the people in the back. There's like a divider, like a little line border, just right here on my list. Everything below this border is a document in my transaction. So instead of pre-submitting it, I can assign it to an existing document, and then Authentisign will overwrite the old document, so that it's a little complex to normally go through in these, but it'll take the new copy and essentially just save it over top of the old copy, where it won't delete the old copy. We still have that as available as a revision, but just our main level document list, we have the original copy. You would get a fresh invite. Yeah, there's an option to add like a custom message to it, but I think the solution to clients being confused if they're getting multiple invites is to just give them a quick call, communicate with them, because they will get separate invites if you send separate signings. When we import a listing, will documents import into our transaction with the listing information, or do we need to go to the listing, save their schedule, and then upload it ourselves? Right now, we would have to save that schedule and upload it ourselves. The system in some areas today already actually does that, where it imports. It's just a question if we host the documents or not. So I don't know if there's plans to do it in this area, but definitely a request I can pass to the powers that be. So something the system technically is able to do, but won't do right now. So the question was, is there any plans to allow for transactions to upload back up to the MLS? So you fill out your listing agreement, your data sheet here. Can we pass that information back up to Matrix for our listing? Something that we're working on doing in Toronto is live in other areas of Ontario. I don't know if the plan is to make it live here, or if there's plans what the ETA is, but again, something the system technically is capable of doing. But when you're searching through your files, more than just the name displays for you. See the type of transaction, you see the property address separate from the name, you see client's information, and you can search by that as well. So if I'm looking for a listing I did 2 years ago, and I can't for the life of me remember the name of the address, but I remember my seller's last name, we can search my file by my seller's last name, And so there's a lot more criteria than just the name that the system's able to bring files up for you. So question was, can you reorder the documents? Because right now it's kind of a mess. And yeah, absolutely. If we go over to, most sections will have this. If we just go over to documents, for example, you have up in the top right, sort options, where we can say, show me most recent documents up top. Show me, alphabetical, whatever the case. There is an option over in settings to make the section just drag and drop instead if you want to manually go in and have stuff in a specific order. But in most sections in the system, you just look up in the top right and you'll have sorting options available to you there.